Could have easily created one of the most interesting reads of the year. Her offering, Backtrack, the voice behind music's greatest stars, is an autobiography of the world we seldom think of, the world of a session musician, the backup vocalist on our favorite song. From David Bowie, Robbie Williams, Eric Clapton, her story is gold. Thank you for joining me here in studio, Tessa. This is probably one of the most fascinating concepts I've ever come across. We don't ever think of the backup singer. We don't ever think of the session musician, and you've created a beautiful story around it.
Thank you so much. Yes, I felt it was a story that needed to be told. I think there's more interest in general about the people that make up a team, not necessarily just the people in the spotlight, but people who are working to make the magic, if you like.
So you go from being this little girl with her brother playing her father's records illegally before he comes home to 1983 when Sting approaches you and says, I want you part of my tour. Talk to me about that life. It's just absolutely fascinating.
Well, it was insane, really, for a young girl to be thrust into that. I went down to audition. Actually, I had no idea who I was auditioning for. I was just told to get down to a recording studio and to be there at a certain time. And when I heard the music coming through this steel door, I said, okay, this is a little bigger than I thought. And Sting opened the door and said, welcome. And I said, okay, now I have to speak to him. And he invited me to do the tour.
That was at the height of the Police. I mean,
that was at their zenith. I mean, they had Every Breath You Take was at #1. And 5 days later, I was off on this extraordinary tour, which was like baptism by fire at 22 years old.
So what was the plan? You wanted to be a singer. The idea was I was going to sign to a record company and be a singer. How did you end up being a session musician, a backup singer? Because we, in many ways, as artists in this country, struggle with the idea of being that voice. Those extra little things we love on the album, we don't think it's somebody else. We all only think it's the artist.
Well, as a kid, I was fascinated by the people that made up the team. I always scanned the back of albums, to see the names and to see who it was that was working on it. And that was always very interesting for me. But I think when I started, I wanted to, like most kids do, to be a star and to move up in the industry. But I figured out pretty early, I think, that my forte was being part of a team. And I loved it. It sat really comfortably. I was good at it. And I didn't have that really strong enough desire to be in the spotlight, I think. I liked to be part of the team, but not full force of the spotlights.
Does that mirror kind of your life as well? Because you always had this partnership when you were a baby with your brother, and you always looked up to your sister. You had fantastic relationships on either side with your parents. You were always part of a team.
I guess so, actually. That's a nice way of looking at it. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
What is this journey that you wanted? Why did you feel the need you had to tell your story?
Well, I think it's moving to South Africa, because I've been living here for 10 years, really afforded me the opportunity to look back, hence the title Backtrack as well. I think when you're busy doing something and working hard at your career, you're not in the space to really review it. But living in South Africa gave me that opportunity. And I just felt it was important to talk about the value of being part of a team, and that it's not all about being the celebrity, that it's hugely valid.
Tessa, when you're sitting down and you had to start writing this pen to paper, what were some of the emotions? Because you had to obviously go and dig and archive your own life.
Absolutely, it's very emotional. And at times talking about people that passed on in my life, and the tougher times that one has, that we all have and go through. Yeah, that was hard. That was really, really, really much more difficult than I imagined. Talking about the fun stuff and the good stuff and the celebrations were relatively easy, but rehashing your mistakes and things that didn't go so well were difficult. But of course, there's so much part of life.
Do you share your entire life when you're doing this kind of thing, or do you have to be the gatekeeper of your own information?
I think so. I think you do. I mean, it was very important for me not to write a kiss and tell, because there's too much of that. People, I felt I didn't need to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I felt I didn't need to do that. Yeah.
Who was the craziest artist you've ever worked with? The most pedantic, the one that you thought, oh, I've got to bite my way through this one.
There were a few. I remember, not particularly loving Michael Bolton. Do you remember Michael Bolton? I loved his voice. I thought he was
Bolton,
amazing.
We know Michael Bolton. You didn't like him.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you just don't gel. But that was very rare.
So you worked with him, but you didn't gel with him?
Not exactly.
Who was the other one? There's one more.
I know. Can't I talk about the people I did gel with?
Okay, give me the one artist you gelled with.
Seal.
Yeah, he's a great guy, isn't he?
Tina Turner. Robbie Williams. Love Robbie. George Harrison.
And you're still in contact with Robbie Williams?
In fact, he's put a quote on the front of my book, which is
let me read that
very
quote.
Robbie.
I'm going to read
Robbie.
Robbie Williams' quote very quickly when we end of this conversation. It says, I can neither confirm nor deny that I've contemplated sleeping with Tessa Niles' talent on several occasions. That's from Robbie Williams. Okay, Tessa Niles, we're going to leave it there. Absolute pleasure talking to you. It's called Backtrack. It's the autobiographical offering from Tessa Niles, and I'm telling you, it's going to be an amazing find this year. I think you need to get it. It's going to form part of book clubs, and maybe get it for holidays, gifts, December, all of those kind of things. Okay, let me know what you think. You've read it. Morning Live at SABC.co.za. It's time for us to welcome our